Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I am with you today, early in the morning today. It is January 6th. It is currently 5:13 a.m., and I'm reaching out to you because of what happened overnight on January 5th that is going to be affecting the United States. Now, I know today is the day of January 6th of 2022. It is the 1 year anniversary of the what's now being called the hashtag J6 event, the January 6th insurrection, some media would like you to believe. And that, of course, is going to be the word of the day today. That is the word you're going to hear some 10,000 times today. But we believe that isn't the biggest issue, not facing America, not facing the world. There is a far bigger problem that has a far more reaching impact, and we want to discuss that with you because this news that happened last night is going to be drowned out, and you need to know about this. Our leaders need to be acting on this because the longer we delay, the worse it is getting. We hope you'll stick with us through this so we can explain this. Now, before we get started, we do, of course, want to also mention that if this is the first time that you are seeing our channel, we welcome you and we thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, not just looking at the issue today, but looking at how did we get to this point so that we can understand what might be the consequences going forward. Every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that we can, that the internet overlords will allow, to be able to receive your texts, your tweets, and your phone calls from anywhere in the world to talk to us about the issues that matter to you, to hear your voice about these issues. Because we believe in the First Amendment, not just for Americans, but for everyone in the world. We believe in your unalienable right by birth to be able to speak about the issues that matter to you. And it doesn't matter if your government doesn't agree. It doesn't matter if the internet overlords don't agree. We believe you have that right, and we hope you will exercise it with us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to tell us what you think. But let's talk about what's happening today and why this is so important. Why is it that even though, and again, you're going to hear this 10,000 times today, you're going to hear it from Republicans, conservatives, libertarians, you're going to hear it from Nancy Pelosi, the right, the left, every news media outlet, especially CNN and MSNBC, they're going to be talking about insurrection. And they're going to try and convince you that there was an attempted insurrection on January 6th of 2021. They're, in fact, spending millions and willing to spend tens of millions if to be able to convince you of that, even though there seems to be no proof of that. And one of the easiest ways to make this very clear for you is that prosecutors have refused to charge anyone with specific crimes. Let me be very exact here. To this date, over 725 Americans have been arrested. Over 500 of them have been in jail for most of all of 2021 because of January 6th. That is a fact. And it is also a fact that at this moment, prosecutors from the DOJ itself have refused to charge any person with treason, with insurrection, with the other 57 charges of domestic terrorism that exist in the United States at this time. Not one. We know that all four individuals who died on January 6th, a year ago, which we are sorry to hear and to know, like Ashley Babbitt, who was killed by Capitol Police, like the protester who was thrown off of a ledge on the Capitol steps and died by Capitol Police. A gentleman had a heart attack, possibly as a complication because of the flashbangs and the gas grenades from Capitol Police. Another woman possibly had an overdose, totally separate, or possibly as a consequence of Capitol Police actions. We believe in our law enforcement agencies. We back the blue. Absolutely. And we have done that on this program over and over again and in person in our community. At the same time, we will call out bad actions, and there seems to be, based on long-form video evidence that the Capitol Police did wrong. And there has been no investigation into the Capitol Police because they have no accountability. They answer only to Congress. So we want to address that, and we want you to understand. And it's not like we don't understand how important this issue is. We remember January 6th when we went live and were speaking about it. So we can see that there have been individuals who have tried to break into the, I believe that's the Senate, and it has been barricaded right now. There are Secret Service agents and other security that are at the doors, and they are barricading those doors at this time. We are aware of quite a few scenes. There have been clashes, as reported by ABC News. And we know from that time a lot more news has come out, a lot more information, a lot more video evidence. And we know that there are individuals who want to use this event for their political gain. But the problem is, when they are using this for their political gain, when they are trying to convince the American people who overwhelmingly aren't agreeing with them, even if they spend millions, even as they put in bills like HR 1627 that we have reported on this program, to spend as much money as necessary to try and convince the American people that there was an insurrection instead of a riot. The cost is what we're seeing happening around the world. The cost is what we saw happen yesterday. The world is more in danger now than it was 24 hours ago. And it has nothing to do with the January 6th insurrection. It has nothing to do with the riots. It has to do with intercontinental missiles. It has to do with hypersonic missiles targeting the United States eventually. Let me explain. Besides the turning point, which we believe was when Joe Biden on ABC News with George Stephanopoulos and looked in the camera and told the world that he believes that Vladimir Putin is a killer, and then backed down in person. That was the signal that Joe Biden was weak. But it also showed that Joe Biden wasn't willing to stand up for what he believed. So then that fell on Kamala Harris. Could she step up? Could she be the strength for the United States? And the answer to that was no. She was an even worse embarrassment for the United States, as we covered on May 23rd of 2021. That around the world, people have recognized not only that Kamala Harris is in charge, but that she doesn't know what she's doing. Here it goes from Australia.
Harris, when she met the president of South Korea, this was a little clip that was doing the rounds on Twitter over the weekend, James and Rita, and we see, I'll show you in a second, you see Kamala Harris shake the hands of the president there of South Korea, but then watch her reaction. Have a look here.
Did you see that? Oh. That moment is critical. It's something that is devastating to the United States international policy, especially in Southeast Asia. You may not think it was a big deal. You may not have really even noticed that Kamala Harris wiped her hand right after shaking the hands of South Korea's President Moon, which is seen as an insult. An absolute slap in the face. In fact, if she had slapped him in the face, it might have been less dramatic. It is an action of disgust. And that is saying that the United States is disgusted with our ally, South Korea. Now, You may not have thought it was a big deal. Most of the American news media didn't think it was a big deal. They didn't really cover that. But if you notice, Australia was outraged and amazed by it. South Korea covered this a lot. And you know who's paying attention to it? North Korea. Kim Jong-un was paying attention to it. And he saw that as a step of weakness, as an insult to our allies, and as a friction in Southeast Asia for the United States. And that wasn't the only thing. If that were the only mistakes, if the only mistakes were for Joe Biden with Vladimir Putin and with Kamala Harris with President Moon of South Korea, it wouldn't be so bad. But then we got to see Joe Biden going to the G7 summit on June 13th of 2021. And he was lost. At least that's the video that was put out there. Now, mind you, I understand this is coming from the Russia Times. So, grain of salt, absolutely. That could be propaganda. The video that was put out on Twitter that the world got to see, that was being spoken about, not just by Republicans and conservatives in the United States, but around the world, the message was that Joe Biden was bumbling around the G7 summit and didn't know where he was, that he was having a mental breakdown and had to be saved by his wife, Jill. Now, you can tell me, well, Mike, that wasn't real. We don't think that was in full context. It doesn't matter if it was or wasn't. Because given the prior missteps and given these actions, it means that Joe Biden is weak. The perception is that he is weak and bumbling. And that means that other leaders around the world will take advantage of that. And they did. In fact, this happened immediately afterwards on June 21st from Iran. And we were covering this, that it is non-negotiable in terms of Iran's ballistic missile program, and that the United States is believed to be so weak that they are stating that the U.S. is obligated to lift all oppressive sanctions against Iran. This happened immediately after the G7 summit, after Kamala Harris insulted the South Korean president, after Joe Biden backed down from telling Vladimir Putin he is a murderer. Weakness was seen. The blood was in the water, and Iran jumped at it. Their hardline president, Odysee, decided to say they knew Joe Biden was having trouble and that he needed a win. He desperately wants to have the Iran nuclear deal renegotiated. And he wants to be able to have money. He wants the hundreds of billions of dollars that this deal represents. But he's not going to stop making a nuclear missile. That's something that the Ayatollah has said back in 2015, and they're saying it again now. They're still going to make an intercontinental ballistic missile to be able to destroy the United States and Israel. Not because of Republicans, not because of conservatives, not even because of Democrats or progressives. It's because we're American citizens. It's because women get to learn and go to school. Women get to drive cars and to go to work because gays aren't being thrown off of buildings. That's why Iran wants to kill America, because Americans are free and we don't believe what they believe. The leadership of Iran. And so he's using this as a means to get everything he wants. A nuclear missile and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars to be exact, that would allow them to fund global terror around the world just like they did in 2016, as reported by then Secretary John Kerry, when he spoke to NBC News and told them directly that the funding for the Iran nuclear deal was being used by Iran to fund global terror. And they did. Again, you don't have to like this. You may even say, well, that's not really the case, but world leaders are seeing this and they are taking advantage of it. And what did Joe Biden do? He said, please come and have a discussion with me. Please, let's talk about this. Let's negotiate that. He showed more weakness. And in fact, it gets even worse because immediately after that, then we found out in September, and I know I skipped an event, I will get to it, but in September, we find out that France is now having friction with the United States, that Joe Biden, after the G7 meeting, went behind the back of our friends and allies in France, embarrassing President Macron, costing France billions of dollars and causing more unemployment in France because Joe Biden decided to make a deal with Australia and didn't tell France anything about it, which caused more tension for the United States. But I left out something in the middle of that because what happened before that? Well, there was, of course, what we saw in Afghanistan. One of the greatest blunders that has ever happened in the United States history, one of the worst travesties that we have ever seen, blowing out of the water the fiasco that was Saigon in 1975. Joe Biden's victory, his extreme success, abandoned 479 American citizens. And even to this day, most Americans don't realize they were lied to. That Joe Biden went on TV and lied to the American people, saying that 85 Americans were left behind. Just 85. And we were doing everything. The Biden and Harris administration was doing everything that it could with Secretary Blinken to get them back home. And that turned out to be the biggest lie said in 2021. Because as we found out in October and confirmed in September, 479 American citizens were abandoned to the tender mercies of the Taliban, to ISIS and Al Qaeda, that they were thrown to the wolves. And it was so bad that they have never been mentioned. You don't hear this. Joe Biden hasn't said Afghanistan, and neither has the American news media. Even as they talk about getting Afghan refugees into America, they won't even talk about American citizens, at least 479 of them, if not 2,000, as independent agencies who are actually getting Americans out of Afghanistan as recently as the second week of December, getting 50 Americans back into the United States in JFK. They're reporting that there could be 2,000 American citizens in Afghanistan right now. And they aren't even being remembered. They aren't even a passing thought, and no one in the news media is willing to touch this because they need to protect Joe Biden. But guess what? Every world leader is paying attention to this. Every world leader is being notified about this. That leaders in Russia, in China, in North Korea, in Iran, they are seeing this. And if Joe Biden isn't willing to protect American citizens in Afghanistan, if he's not even willing to mention their names, do you really believe that Joe Biden is going to protect Taiwan? Is Joe Biden really going to step forward and help the Ukraine? Are we going to help any of our allies? We won't even help our own people. And this is part of the problem. This is why we have been seeing this escalate and getting worse and worse. But it doesn't stop there. Again, what did we see? In November of 2021, reported November 22nd of 2021, coming from The Guardian, a left-leaning source, talking about the fact that China has launched a hypersonic missile. In fact, the second hypersonic missile firing that they shot off. And General Milley, who is talking with China behind the back of some of our presidents, which is a treasonous act in our opinion, didn't know anything about it. His counterpart that he was more than happy to talk to about the actions of the United States, did not tell him that there was a hypersonic missile test. And this is the reason why, as reported by The Guardian, that the Pentagon and therefore the White House, the Biden-Harris administration, and America was completely caught by surprise, not realizing that this is how far China has outpaced the United States in terms of nuclear missile technology. And it gets worse because now the test is believed to have also included the release of a separate missile that rocketed away, falling harmlessly into the South China Sea. Neither the United States nor Russia has demonstrated the same ability, which requires launching a missile from a parent vehicle traveling 5 times the speed of sound. Hypersonic missiles move at 5 times the speed of sound. And not only did we not know that China could do this, we didn't know that they did this when they were doing this, nor did we know that there was a second missile that was included in this, that they fired 2 missiles, not 1, which increased the tensions in the United States and, of course, terrified Taiwan, our ally, who China has been spending all of 2021 telling them that they're going to invade and take that over. And the Biden administration has been wishy-washy, flip-flopping back and forth, not giving our ally any answer. So after being embarrassed with France, after embarrassing our allies in South Korea, in watching Vladimir Putin step all over Joe Biden, in watching Iran step all over the Biden-Harris administration, in watching China slap around the Biden-Harris administration, and even quoting the very democratic socialist progressives and saying that America can't say anything because China is morally superior because they don't have race relation issues, which of course they don't. They make them disappear. The Uyghurs in China disappear into concentration camps, never to be seen again. But the Biden administration backed down to all of this. And therefore, that's why we saw in December of 2021 that Russia decided to put 100,000 troops on the border of the Ukraine. And they are asking for the same thing that they asked for from the Obama-Biden administration in 2014. They want land. They want the Ukraine. Coming from foreignpolicy.com on December 10th, we find out that the Biden administration is considering appeasement, giving Russia more land than they gave them in 2014 as negotiated with the help of the Obama administration, that they're telling the Ukraine to give away more of its nation and more of its people to the Russians in hopes that that will appease them. And that policy never works. That's the worst policy. That's the policy in 1940s Germany with Neville Chamberlain. It actually created less peace and led to more violence. Not only did he do that, but he guaranteed that the United States wouldn't come to the Ukraine's help, that we would never put troops on that soil. The threat of having U.S. troops come in to help the Ukraine is a deterrent to Russia to put their troops in the Ukraine. Whether or not the United States would do it is immaterial to the threat of it being done. And a strong president can make that threat and leave that question in the air. But the Biden-Harris administration decided to say that we would never do this. And because they said we would never support our allies and our friends of the European Union in the Ukraine, the result of that is that yesterday, January 5th of 2022, not only is Russia on the border of the Ukraine looking to take that over, they are now sending troops into Kazakhstan so that they can help stabilize that nation because no one's going to stop Russia from grabbing more land. Because that's what happens when you try appeasement. The appeasement fails. The country that's trying to take over continues to try and take over because they haven't faced any opposition to make them stop. Something that the Biden-Harris administration does not understand. Do you see why I think this is a bigger issue? The word of the day should not be insurrection. It should be international policy. We need to work on our foreign policy. Our world leaders need to say something about what's going on with Russia right now. Because if they can get away with taking away the land from the Crimea, from Russia, from the Ukraine, and they can take over Kazakhstan, what is next? Germany? Do they go into Europe to take back Poland? Where are they going to stop? Because the Biden administration isn't doing anything to stop them. They're too busy trying to tell you that there was an attempted insurrection that no one has been charged with. And the last piece of news that came out overnight that you may or may not hear about, and I probably expect you will not hear about this at all today, January 6th, you're not going to hear about this, is the fact that North Korea fired its own hypersonic missile. And the United States answer is the United States, quote, the United States condemns North Korea's ballistic missile launch. This launch is in violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions and poses a threat to the North Korea's neighbors and the international community. This is from the Antony Blinken State Department under the Biden-Harris administration. They're telling North Korea, you committed a crime, stop doing it. This is coming from the Korea Herald. Maybe they got it wrong. Let's go to the BBC. The BBC, North Korea successfully tests hypersonic missile. Kim Jong-un said in a New Year's speech that North Korea would continue to strengthen its defense capabilities due to an increasingly unstable military environment in the Korean peninsula. North Korea tested a variety of missiles last year amid stalled talks with the South and the United States. So, after Kamala Harris goes to South Korea, talks break down because Kim Jong-un watches Kamala Harris insult President Moon and the people of South Korea, and they watch that the Biden administration abandons American citizens in Afghanistan. They know that the Biden-Harris administration is weak. They know that if the Biden-Harris administration won't protect its own people, and they are insulting to the face our allies in their home countries, they will not stand up to anyone. And therefore, we see Kim Jong-un, North Korea, firing off missiles, and they're using the technology from China for hypersonic missiles, something that the United States does not have and cannot stop at this moment. And they're firing them at Japan. The hypersonic missile test was 310 miles outside of Japan's exclusive economic zone. It was just outside of Japanese national territory. So not only is North Korea making a statement to South Korea, they're also making a statement to Japan.
North Korea test-fired an unidentified projectile this morning, and there are concerns that this could create tension and further deepen the stagnation in inter-Korean relations. But we should not give up the hope for dialogue in order to fundamentally overcome this situation.
But the dialogue isn't happening because the United States isn't in there. And the United States is critical. This is coming from Reuters. Again, these are left-leaning sources. This isn't about Republican versus Democrat. This is about the United States' safety, our national security. This is about the future of the security of the world. We are watching the world peace and whatever passes for peace in the globe, it's breaking down as we're seeing more and more of the most violent authoritarian communist nations in the world are stepping out, and they are making grabs for power and land as we speak, because the most powerful nation in the world, the United States, has a weak leader. It has a weak secondary, and we're so busy trying to convince our own people of a PR stunt for political gain in an election in 2022 and 2024. And my friends, let me make it very clear. If you've made it this far into the video, and I thank you for doing that, if I can see this connection and I can show it to you in real time, showing you events as they happened and the consequences of them, do you think that the leaders and the staff of Vladimir Putin, of Kim Jong-un, of President Raisi in Iran, and Xi Jinping, you think they don't see this? We should be talking about what can Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do to show strength of the United States around the world. How can we help our allies in the European Union? Because Russia wants the Ukraine, and now they want Kazakhstan too. We shouldn't have our allies and our friends in Korea terrified that North Korea is going to drop a hypersonic missile on them, or our allies in Japan being terrified that they're going to be hit with hypersonic missiles because Joe Biden is too busy to pay attention to them. Our allies in Taiwan shouldn't be the only ones saying that China can't invade. We should be standing there beside them. Going forward, what's going to have more of an impact on the United States and the world, preventing President Trump from being able to run in 2024, or stopping Russia from taking over the Ukraine and Kazakhstan, stopping China from taking over Taiwan, stopping North Korea from attacking South Korea and Japan? Which set of issues are going to have more of an effect on the rest of the world? Well, actually, you may disagree with me. You may say, Mike, there is nothing more important than what Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and NBC and CNN have told us. You may believe that, and if you do, that is perfectly fine. I'm not going to tell you you can't. This is one of the many things that we will be talking about Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope that you will join us for our live stream to give us your thoughts on this and other issues around the world. God bless America.